Okay, I'd like to call to order the City of Monona Sustainability Committee, Thursday, December 14th, 2023. So you've got the roll call.
Yep, all set.
As you looked over the minutes, is there anyone that, I'll take an approval to, I'll take a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll move.
Is there a second?
I wasn't here, so I would
wasn't
abstain
here.
from the vote probably.
Robert's rule
But it
says
looks
you
like-
can vote even if you weren't here.
No. Was Dan here?
Dan, were you at?
No, he's listed on the absent list.
I wasn't either.
And but what happened to Ken?
Yes,
Also, if without Ken, do we not have quorum, or do we have quorum anyway?
We still have 5, so we're
Okay.
good.
may I second? I'm gonna second. Are there any changes that folks would like to see? Anything that was not captured correctly for those that were here? Hearing none, all in favor of approving the minutes, say aye. And-
Aye.
All right. All right, we don't have any appearances, so let's move ahead then to unfinished business. And our Sustain Dane All Around Dane County event, which is coming up. Let's make sure we keep on target. I'm gonna try to do this in less than 15 minutes. So here's the update. Thor and I spoke a couple days ago, and both of us feel sort of lousy about pushing this back because we feel like we've already pushed it back with Sustain Dane. But the truth is that it's just not moving forward as fast as we thought it would, and so I telephoned Samantha Warden yesterday. I apologize. And so now we're looking out in the month of February, we're looking at some dates. So I thought tonight perhaps we would look at a calendar and just narrow down or at least identify if there are any blackout dates that people absolutely know that they could not attend. Not that you have to attend, but it would just be nice if we already know for sure that there are just absolute dates we should avoid. So again, looking into January, we want to avoid Wednesdays because we want Ken to be there, and I think he said he has an obligation on Wednesdays. So that leaves open some Thursday dates such as the 15th of February or the 22nd. There are also some Tuesdays, the 20th or the 6th. The final week in February was something that Samantha wanted to stay away from, so we'll do that. What are people's thoughts on those options? And I think, and the 8th would be not available as a Thursday just because of this committee meeting and another committee meeting I have that night. So again, those dates are the 6th, the 15th, 20th, or 22nd.
I would be available those Thursdays, the 15th to 22nd. That's great.
You prefer not the Tuesdays though?
Mhm.
Okay, so 15 and 22nd sound like they're in the running. Does anyone have an issue with one of those 2 dates? Ken, did I get it correct? You said that Wednesdays were not possible for your family. You have one of your kiddos is in sports, I think.
Yeah, Wednesdays I've been recruited to coach skiing, so I'm
Yeah.
obligated for Wednesdays in January, February, and March.
Perfect. So, Ken, I don't know if you were with us when I was
Now my
explaining.
computer started to force an update on me, and I wasn't fast enough to tell it no, so it automatically restarted on me.
So what we're talking about is that the Sustain Dane event has been moved to February. And we were just
Okay.
looking out at the calendar to see if anyone has a date that they are absolutely like not able to be here. And we're down to 2 Thursdays. One would be the 15th and the other would be the 22nd.
Let me just pull mine up and
Yeah.
see what I've got going on.
22nd would be better for me.
Okay, so it's looking better and better. Okay, on the 22nd.
The 22nd, I'll be more than likely headed up north for the Berkey ski race that day.
Yeah,
If it's on the 15th, I could do it.
okay. Rick, is that something that you would still have a pretty big conflict with?
Well, as you know, my daughter's getting married this weekend, so
Oh.
I'm not sure what my time demands will be, but I'm pretty sure there'll be stuff
Yeah,
happening with people coming in from out of town and such.
What about that 20th date? I could be flexible on that date.
Yeah,
Ken, what does February 20th look like for you?
Let me take a look.
The Tuesday.
Trying to remember what we got on Tuesdays. Um. Well, tentatively, I'm open.
Okay,
Yeah. Right now, Caitlin has ice skating lessons on Tuesdays, but I don't know if she's going to be in those in February. And even if she is,
Sure.
mom can take her to ice skating. I'm not a coach for that, so.
okay, okay. Well, then let's save the 20th of February for now, and I'll reach out to the Trattoria, Fratelli's Trattoria. Yeah, I was trying to say those words together. They have a really lovely little downstairs area and the owner is just really so helpful and very happy to help us. So I will reach out to them.
What time was that again?
I think we're thinking like a happy hour time of day. So would that mean 5:30? What do you think? Five, is 5 too early? I know that people start happy hour at 5, but it always feels so early to me.
Yeah, I usually wrap up around 5 with work, so.
Me
it's
too.
5:30.
Let's do 5:30. Yeah, let's do 5:30. Yeah, okay. Okay, tell these. All right, let's do that. And then, wonderful. So unless you hear differently, let's just assume that that is the date. And I'm working on contacting our speakers. Ken would be one of them. And then perhaps Peter Sobel to speak a little bit about the solar panels on the high school. We've also got representative from the Bee and Butterfly Brigade. We'll have someone from Public Works talking about INI and all the wonderful things that they're doing there. I spoke with Neil, our city administrator. I'd like him to speak a little bit more about some of the strategic planning around sustainability, which is very exciting, and I'll tell you a little bit about that in a moment. And then we can talk about projects that everybody's doing, all the seasonal campaigns that we've got. All right, fantastic. Thanks, guys. How did I do keeping the time here? Next on the agenda. Let's go on then to 5B, leaf-free streets and adopt a storm drain project update. I think what I can say there is that Thor, Rick and I met with Brad and we just did a little debrief at the end of it all. And I think one of the main takeaways is that I wasn't perhaps I didn't understand how meaningful storm drains are to Brad and how integral it is to his job and how he very much, it's his thing to own. And so we did have pre-meetings and I thought we were sort of, respecting that boundary. Next time we'll just be a little more aware. And some of Brad's goals are to move from the Monona homegrown, adopt a storm drain program and move over to the county program. And he's thinking he would do that toward I said end of this year. So that it would be ready by next year. By next year, I think we're going to be moving swiftly to the county program. Which I think would be just fine. I think it would be great. We've already sort of adopted the program, the materials for the county leaf-free streets, and this will just be additionally, adopt a storm drain. And we also talked about moving that adopt a storm drain into all months of the year, not just an autumn focus. All right, great. Let me get back to my notes so that I can see if there's anything I'm missing. We talked about updates to the website. Again, just sort of a misunderstanding about that whole thing. And Brad felt that perhaps putting flyers on pizza boxes, while we thought it was an outstanding idea, he questioned, and maybe the county folks may have also questioned whether they wanted them to be used that way. I think they perhaps were hoping that we would have more of a personal handoff where we could explain and educate people. I get it. More than anything, Brad really would like this body to be more of a marketing team. And for example, if we wanted to do anything with community media, like let's say we wanted to have one of the public works guys stand by a storm drain and have the community media guys roll a little camera and put a video up on Monona Go. They would all be very, very, very happy to do that, but they need us to do everything except actually speak into the camera, right? They just don't have the time to coordinate, write scripts and things like that. It's kind of how it's been, that's fine. And he said, as long as I'm just asked to show up and read something, I'm happy to do it. Whereas like the city of Madison has their own media department for their stormwater initiative, we clearly don't, and he was thinking we could be that media department. Okay. All right, let's go ahead then, and I'm gonna move on to the next item on the agenda, unless there's anything else to say about leaf-free streets and adopt a storm drain. All right, here we go. Next, 5C, 2023 to 24 SaltWise project update. I feel like I'm not the best person to speak to this since my phone kept cutting in and out of our meeting. But I can say that Ashley and Kristen and Thor and I met and felt like we knocked a lot of stuff out, but go ahead, take it away if you want to just say a few words. Otherwise, I'm happy to, but
Yeah, basically, the plan is to continue to reach out to businesses around town, maybe expand to businesses on the east side of Monona Drive as well, since they fall into our watershed. Passing out flyers that we used last year, as well as the remaining window clings and bookmarks. And then also I brought it was floated to possibly do stickers since there's additional budget. So I brought some pricing and mock-ups for some stickers to do in lieu of more window clings, since once the business has a window cling, then they won't need another, but maybe we can have these distributed at businesses to share out to their customers as a way to get the word out. And I think the idea is to try and scrounge up some volunteers and split up kind of the door-to-door knocking either at this meeting or shortly thereafter, so we can get that information distributed before it starts snowing, which doesn't sound like it's happening anytime soon, but
yeah, I was reading that it's meant to be one of the warmest
Yeah.
winters on record, but
Yeah.
how happy that makes us. I
Yeah.
don't know, yeah.
So up on the screen, Thor's got those. One idea was to do just a square sticker, and this is a takeoff of what we did last year for the window clings. The one on the right would be a little bit more expensive and a little bit larger. It would be like a die cut, so just an outline sticker. So those were some ideas. Keeping it pretty simple, but also trying to just something fun that maybe someone would stick on their water bottle and it would spark a conversation, hopefully, is the concept there. Doesn't really have information, but we can always, if we use a square one, certainly, and even maybe on the other one, we can throw a website up there possibly as well, if we wanted to try and incorporate that. So people could be redirected to some information at least.
I just love this slogan, and I just remember it was born out of the most casual goofing around conversation, but it's great, you know, and posed over Lake Monona like that. So we've got.
So pricing, if you scroll up, there's pricing up higher for various sizes. So the top two are for die cut stickers, which would be the outline stickers. The bottom is for pricing for the square stickers, which are less expensive.
Can you explain to me which of the two is the die cut?
So the one on the right would be the die cut. It would basically just be that shape. The sticker would be in that shape. Which is what the die cut would be versus a square with the white background. The one on the right would be like actually in the shape of Lake Monona. And the outline of the words, yeah.
But it's about 50% more expensive.
Yeah, okay.
It's also larger.
Yeah, so If we don't have the white background, then the Don't Be Salty part would be bigger, of course, but I figured like a 3x3, so in the room here, I've got like, it'd be about that big-ish,
Okay.
That's the 3x3.
approximately, yeah.
I don't think it
you
needs to be
lose
bigger
too
than
much.
that.
That's a
Yeah.
great size,
Yeah.
yeah.
I don't think the die cut gives you anything more graphically than the square would.
Yeah.
Since it's cheaper.
What are
Probably
your-
easier to manipulate.
Possibly.
Yeah, I think I prefer that.
I kind of like the dice.
The die
You
cut.
got like the die cut?
I don't know,
I personally like the
interesting,
die cut,
yeah.
I think that it, like, I don't know, like,
It's a
it's
more
fun,
modern
it's
way
more
to.
modern, yeah, way to share.
I agree. So if we go with, so you highlighted the price points that you think are the most logical, is that what
I
you're?
did, for the square stickers, I don't know how many of these we would need or want, but it seemed like that was a decent price, you kind of. I went through all the prices and of course you can get like 50 or 100, I just picked 2, 5 and 1,000 for simplicity, but those were the prices that you really saw some savings. Before you kind of got into the bigger numbers.
And right at the top, or what are we looking at there for the die cut, 500 for 231, okay.
So
you
it's a
think-
difference of like, what is that?
Right.
You know, $35 or
Yeah.
something, $37.
Do we think we need 500?
Seems like a lot to me.
Yeah, I don't know.
Maybe 200 is a better number. And then that price difference too between a square and a die cut, the 200 count,
Nominal.
negligible, yeah.
What might we distribute these? What do you think?
I was thinking, you know, since our snow season might be pushed back a little bit, if we're doing outreach maybe in January instead of before the holidays. If we get them ordered soon enough, we could also include it in our outreach and then leave some in piles at different stores and restaurants and things like that, so then customers could pick them up. That was my main thought.
Yeah,
Also maybe, I don't know, school. If we had, you know, we talked about distributing flyers through schools, maybe kids would want to put one on a water bottle. I
maybe
don't know.
we do need 500. Stickers are kind of cool.
I mean, I think last year we had 30 plus businesses we stopped at and we talked to, and if you left 20 at a business. I mean, certainly places like, you know, Atwood Tax might not, or not Atwood Tax, but the tax place up the road, maybe tax. You know, like maybe they wouldn't need so many, but pizza places and, yeah.
I think, like, especially if you hand it out together with a bookmark that explains a little bit more, people read the bookmark and kind of probably toss it, right? But the sticker, they might throw on the back of their laptop.
Yeah.
Which is gonna spark a conversation with someone, like,
Yeah.
what's that all
Yeah,
about?
maybe we
Oh,
could
well,
leave some at the library.
and then they repeat what they remember reading on the bookmark,
Mhm.
yeah. What do we have in our budget?
So 400
400 in our budget?
this year, and I forgot to double check what the budget amount is for next year. Do you remember?
Same as this year.
Okay,
And so this is really the only expense for this whole campaign, right?
Yeah.
Because we're gonna reuse everything that we bought last year. We have
Yeah.
leftovers.
yeah,
Yeah, I guess if we're not spending anything else this year, we might as well.
Yeah,
500.
so,
Cause it's, I mean, they're not branded by year, so we can.
right,
right.
Like, just like the bookmarks, we can just keep, you know, sharing them out.
and I can't recall, how many bookmarks did we have already here?
I think you said we ordered 2,000?
Yeah,
We have like half.
Yeah.
left, I'd say.
well, that's great.
And
Okay.
also, I'm thinking, you know, Winona is a big lake, like people outside of the community might be interested in these stickers, so hopefully like people would see it and be like, where'd you get that sticker? And then
Right,
when it drives people, if we can include a website somehow.
I was thinking about like just the event in February, we're gonna be handing those out. I was thinking of like the event at San Damiano, the winter, you know, wood carving, there's just so many opportunities.
I think
like,
you're cute enough to
they're
throw on a water bottle
people,
or.
I
Oh, yeah.
agree.
Yeah.
I agree, I would totally do that.
Mhm.
So is there a motion to, or can you scroll right up so I can get this? Is there a motion to order 500 3x3 die cut stickers? Anyone?
I would move.
Is there a second?
I'd second.
In favor?
I,
Aye. Any opposed? All right, motion passes. Let's do that. Let's get that done. Thank you for putting that together.
Yep.
All right, next, so I'm trying to keep. All right. Let's take 15 minutes to talk about operationalizing sustainability. Couple really nice updates to share with everyone. First of all, our new city administrator is very much all about organizing, and planning and strategic planning. And I've spoken with him a few times about really getting serious about sustainability initiatives, and he's very much in agreement that that needs to happen. So it's my understanding that sometime in about January, the council members are going to get together and start really hammering out our strategic plan as related to many things, but sustainability being one of them. And it's going to be looking at some of our goals that we've set, particularly around energy. And it's going to be looking at the Green Tier Legacy community reports and how one of the suggestions I and Alder Bernstein and Thor and I have spoken about with other city department heads is how can we take the goals that are listed in the GTLC document and make them something that each department works on all year round. Each department has their own miniature sustainability plan. It would not be written into job descriptions as we've talked about before, but it would eliminate this once a year scramble when Brad and Thor suddenly say, okay, guys, what have you done in all of 2023? We need to report on it now. That would, so there's that. I think there's a lot of serious commitment from our city leadership to operationalize these goals. Second, Rick and I met with the sustainability coordinator in the city of Middleton and took away a lot of amazing information from her. Her name is Kelly Hilliard, and she's been with the city of Middleton for a few years. And some of the takeaways was, and let me also say that another thing the city is currently working on is reevaluating the paid staff positions that we have and hiring a formal sustainability position is on the list of options. And it's going to be sort of wrapped into the referendum that's coming up. And I guess we'll find out if the community is willing to support that financially. But as that job description is being written, some of the things that we discussed with the Middleton Sustainability Director was that she sort of listed off the skill set, right? Someone who can bring in money and someone who knows about grants and someone who can do that to sort of pay for this position. Someone who has a really strong and big network, because this person is going to be coordinating, facilitating, building connections within your own community and with others. She said that most of the skills you learn on the job, facilitation, how government works. Actually not so surprising. She did not think that a really strong scientific background was necessary because those people are out there. You just need to know how to find them and how to connect with them. And plus in Dane County, she was explaining to us that Brad is part of this group already. They meet periodically with one another and they all sort of share secrets about what their communities are doing and support one another. So she did stress that there would be an outstanding support system for whoever the city might hire, if we do hire someone. Was there anything you remember that I'm missing, Rick? I'm just sort of going through my notes here.
Yeah, it was a wide-ranging discussion,
Yeah,
but yeah, she's very connected to a network of people that I kind of feel like we could be patching into more
Yeah.
thoroughly.
I do too.
And yeah, she is finding grants for projects, millions of dollars.
Yeah. she
So
said she
there's
brought in
lots of
2
money
million
left
already.
on the table
Yep,
that we're not taking advantage of.
yep. Yeah.
So it's really, it's not just an expense, it's kind of an investment
Exactly.
in sustainability, and I think we all know that the environmental impacts are, but there's probably an economic argument you could make too.
Yep.
In terms of what it's saving, what it could save the city, long-term benefits.
I agree.
So, yeah, it just seemed like a logical thing to try to incorporate into our city as well.
Yeah, the financial argument is really taken off the table when you consider that, given the time to chase down grants, she's able to bring them in,
Right,
but our staff just doesn't have the time to do that.
and take them in and administer them.
Correct.
Usually they come with a lot of strings.
Yeah, of instructions, yeah. She's working on some really interesting stuff. A lot of overlap with DEIB initiatives, a lot of stuff with energy efficiency as it pertains to low income housing. So it's just the perfect natural complement.
Yeah, that was
Really-
that was one of the most interesting things.
Yeah,
How it fits in with affordable housing.
right. And she also sort of said, sadly, she said that working with older housing units and trying to bring, you know, renewable energy to folks who live in apartment buildings is really much more difficult than she thought it would be. Because each unit, the way that the entire building is metered, you know, how do you separate each
Oh,
unit?
yeah,
And
well, that
So that
NG&E
was
makes it
difficult.
really hard to get
Yeah.
per unit energy usage. They're tooling up to be able to do that, but I didn't know when that was actually gonna be available.
Yeah.
So that seemed to make things very complicated. She was only using like some multi-family housing that had 4 units, which is not, you wouldn't think would be that complicated.
Yeah.
But it is.
But yeah, just a wonderful conversation. She said, in Middleton, the pay scale started at 53K, but now it's up to like between 70 and mid-80s, so interesting. And she mentioned that there's more money for sustainability than ever before, referring to federal programs. So let's just, I will keep, Alder Bernstein, I will keep everyone updated, as that moves forward. Super exciting. Yeah, all right. So this leads into agenda item 5E, discussion of the 2024 sustainability programming and possible focus areas. We talked a bit in the past about really focusing on energy and putting together perhaps a roadmap to how the city can get toward clean energy, and I think that would be ideal. I referenced the school district, Ken, you know, that blue-green map that Matt created, and it would just be so nice to create one of those for the city. And if I'm not mistaken, it would require getting energy data from MG&E, and you plot it up against the roof replacement schedule of all our facilities, and then you just put it on. That's all you do. We've talked about this before. I'm just wondering, Ken, I don't know what your free time looks like, or if this is something that you would be able to do, or do you think it is something you should be doing, or do you think it's something that who's the person for the job, in your opinion?
I'm gonna hazard a guess and say that Brad probably has that data already. I don't know that we'd need to get it from MG&E. I'd be surprised if Brad doesn't have the energy data for all of our buildings
Okay,
someplace in there. And I'm sure he probably knows at least how old the roofs are. I don't know if the city's actually done a replacement schedule for them, but he at least would know the age of the existing roofs, I'm sure. So it'd just be a matter of pulling all that data together into, you know, one place and summarizing it. You know, the easiest way to summarize is just in a table, of course. And then once it's in a table, you know, you can work from there to come up with a fancy graphic. Matthew did a nice job for that on the high school committee.
and I hear through my circle of friends that he currently works for the Milton School District. One of my
Oh,
old
is that
friends-
right?
One of my old friends actually hired him in Milton, so
Well, good for him. Good
so I
for
know
him.
where to find him, and we can
Yeah.
make, but But I also have the impression that it is rather difficult to get the data from MGE, but maybe it's not. I get a little pushback, but
We do have it
okay.
by building, we track that, we get it from MGE, and we do report it to EPA every year,
Okay.
so that's already been
You already have
entered
it.
for 2023.
Okay.
but, yeah.
So it's really just a matter of making sure we just get the roof replacement schedule from Brad.
Yeah.
then. Okay.
And then, getting it in a format where we can make some nice charts.
If you could get the roof replacement schedule, we can just get Matt to make us a chart. It's not that hard. Okay, that would be wonderful. I also heard, and Rick, maybe you remember when we were talking to the Middleton Sustainability Coordinator, she said that, what is the name of the software? Energy Star, is that what it's called? Energy Star?
Yeah, the energy solar parks portfolio.
Portfolio.
Where we,
She said that all of that data that Middleton is entering into that software is now sort of in a format where it'll spit out this very sort of report that we're talking to, and I don't know if, do you use that?
we do,
software?
yep, mhm.
Okay, would you be able to check with Brad to see if he's familiar with the changes to that software and what it can do?
Yeah.
Cause we may not have
The
to, yeah,
various reporting,
Okay.
yeah, okay.
great, okay. So I guess as far as like focusing on 2024, also in that conversation with Brad, what he was really stressing to us was something that we've talked about before, which is to, keep doing the seasonal campaigns, but just maybe just focus on one thing across the city. We talked about it being energy. I think we've all sort of agreed that that's what we want to do. Some other overall goals that we might want to establish for this community or this committee next year would be to think about the manpower that we have on this committee and whether we need more people power. And I also spoke with Neil, our city administrator, about this. It's written into the city ordinance that there's X number of people on this committee. It's really the city council increasing that number. So it would not be a big heavy lift. Alder Bernstein and I to present that change and then make sure people will vote in favor of it. It just would be nice to have the ability to have more folks so that we could have like a dedicated pollinator group or a dedicated rain garden group or all the things that people want to work on. And it wouldn't be asking too much of a heavy lift from anyone. All right. Is there any opposition to that idea? Okay, great. All right. So new business. 6A, discussion of possible winter salt use ordinance. Thor, would you like to explain a little bit more about that? My mind has sort of been back and forth on whether that's a good idea.
Yeah, so this came up during our project meeting last week. For the Salt Wise project, the Don't Be Salty project. Kristen suggested we could consider as a committee if we want to explore this. It's something that Madison enacted last year where property owners are required to, in addition to removing snow and ice from their sidewalks, they need to remove any excess salt after the ice has melted. So that ordinance was adopted last year in Madison, and I've put that in the packet. I'm just gonna pull it up real quick here. So here's the relevant language here. So it allows Madison to just enforce reasonable salt usage, which right now, we don't have any mechanism for doing that. We get calls a couple times every winter about, someone reporting too much salt on a sidewalk somewhere. We'll take care of it if it's, city responsibility, if it's park right of way or, you know, on a city building sidewalk, but for the most part, there's nothing we can do when these kinds of offenses are seen. So adopting an ordinance would allow us to, you know, to have some enforcement mechanism, whether that's a fine, would be something that we could discuss. And other things to consider would be, you know, how do we enforce this? How strictly will it be enforced? Is it just a symbolic ordinance or not?
Well, I was gonna ask that about if you know, and knowing it's only been in effect for a year, but if Madison's enforced it ever, or do they have data on, you know, 3 times?
Yeah, I was
or-
wondering the same thing.
Yeah, I don't have any of those statistics. I haven't reached out to anyone at the city of Madison to ask about, you know, why they decided to do this and how they've been enforcing it. But I'd be happy to do that if the committee would like to explore that.
Yeah.
Do we have any
Logical.
information about the number of complaints that we've had about excess salt in the past?
We don't track it anyway, but personally, I got 2 last year. I'm sure code enforcement gets more.
Okay. Is there a way to find out?
I can ask
Okay.
John, our code enforcement officer, you know, about his experience with this.
Well, just
I
a
think
just a
any
few
possible
thoughts
ordinance
on
we
that.
wanna-
I think. I'm
ahead,
sorry.
Ken.
Go ahead, Thor.
No, go ahead.
Well, just a few thoughts on that. I think you know, the number of actual complaints are probably limited because for most people, the salt is an invisible thing. It's just something they step over, right? It's there in the winter, and then at some point it goes away, either because it got cleaned up or it got washed down the drain. And I think a lot of people don't even think about it. And you know, an ordinance like this would be helpful even if we never give out a fine, just by drawing people's attention to the issue. And you know, a lot of people would you know, then comply just because it is an ordinance that's been passed. And I think especially probably the most egregious problems that I see are not so much homeowners, but their business places where they contract out their snow removal. And of course, the snow removal places don't want to get, you know, calls with complaints from customers because of people slipping on the ice. So they just throw a tremendous quantity of salt out there. But then it's, you know, incumbent upon the business owner usually to go and clean up that salt afterwards because you know, the snow removal contractor usually doesn't come back and do that part of the job. So I think, you know, an ordinance like this would be helpful. Even if we never hand out a fine, it makes, you know, business owners and the snow removal contractors just, you know, conscious of the issue.
Yeah,
You know, I think of Nomo May. When the ordinance around that was changed, the changing of the ordinance became news. And that was really what awakened people to this concept, you know, maybe that's the same thing here. There's really no punitive, you know, intent, it's just awareness perhaps, you know. What are other people's thoughts on it? Do you think it's performative? Do you think it's, I don't know, are we wasting our time?
no,
No,
we're not
yeah.
wasting
It's a
our time.
waste of time.
Okay,
This is big. I think it could be really big. I
okay,
think it could really make people a lot more aware of salt, just to the level they knew that they're legally responsible to shovel the sidewalk. They're now legally responsible to be responsible for their salt use. So I think, like you said, even if we never give out maybe one fine just to
Right.
make the news, you know,
right,
and you know, I think it could make a big difference.
I do too. Yeah,
Yeah, I certainly don't think it would be a bad thing, and I mean, frankly, I think I'd rather never see anyone fined for anything. I mean, I would always prefer that people are just, so I'm not even really concerned whether Madison's like
Yeah.
had a bunch because they're sending people out and magnifying glasses looking for, you know, snow along the grass of the, like, but I think to your point of just making it part of the ordinance in Monona and making it clear that that's something that the city is taking a bit of a stand on and that hopefully could get some news as we're doing it.
And I mean, presumably, just like any other thing that, you know, might be issued a fine for, there's gonna be an option to issue a warning instead.
Sure,
You know,
sure.
when the ordinance is brand new, you know, the first time that there's a call from somebody complaining about a business place or a residential homeowner, of course, the first thing you'll do is just call them, inform them about the ordinance and give them a warning, right? You're not gonna slap them with a fine right out of the gate because they probably didn't know the ordinance existed, so.
Exactly. What do you think about Madison's language? I think perhaps oh, Dan, were you about to say something?
I say it's always challenging with the language, right? I mean, reasonable quantities from a legal enforcement point of view. What's the definition of reasonableness for the amount of salt that's put on a surface? If somebody, you know, is expecting heavy freezing, they could call it preventative measures. It's really, I think the language is always challenging. Anytime you use words like reasonable or fair or whatnot.
Yep.
Yeah, it at least, you know, allow action against really egregious offenses, probably, if you have language like that.
Well, and yeah, I think I totally agree with that point, Dan. I think that's also part of the, like, it's not even so much about the enforcement for me of whether we would be putting the city in a position of having to make a reasonable judgment and then having a homeowner question the reasonableness piece of it. I think that it's the value of just raising the awareness of it being a concern. And I think, I mean, at least I have, I guess, but I've certainly encountered people who have a lot of excess salt, but it's not something that I'm like, you know, immediately alarmed by. But I walked 2 weeks ago before we even had enough cold for there to be snow. I walked over a couple of sidewalk squares that were like, I couldn't even see the sidewalk. So it's sort of like, that's where I think they could apply reasonableness if they chose to pursue violations, but it would be like that end of the spectrum, like to a level of severity. But I also think that if we stay away from enforcing it entirely, then that's also would be fine, because it's about just making people aware of it as a problem.
I think the other obvious case where you could have enforcement is, you know, when it's the middle of May and people still have piles of salt sitting on their sidewalk, right? You know, that has been left over from the snowstorms in February and March and never got cleaned up and is just slowly washing away with every rainstorm, you know, like takes 5 minutes to go out there with a broom and a dustpan and clean up that mess, but some people just leave it and let nature wash it down the drain, you know.
All right.
Yeah, I
Well, in
think
terms of-
it's just gonna be one of those ordinances that with good communication and outreach and maybe tying to the Don't Be Salty campaign, it's good from an education point of view, but I wouldn't expect it's gonna be something that's used heavily in terms of enforcement and fines.
Right.
Think of it a lot like, 20 or 30 years ago when they passed the seatbelt law, right? They didn't hand out all that many seatbelt tickets in the last 20, 30 years, but now virtually everybody always wears a seatbelt, right? They got compliance without having to hand out tons of fines, you know. Of course, it helped that the auto manufacturers made the car, you know, sort of self-enforce it for them too.
Yeah. That's true.
So just looking at the city of Monona ordinances, there currently is nothing like this in any of our ordinances. The only time the word salt comes up is related to the purchasing of salt. And whereas with that No Mow May ordinance, it was really already in the ordinances, and just a very clever little word choice change was all that was required to not really encourage or stop people from the way they maintain their lawn. It was just the news was what was the big deal. So I can see this, yeah. The news of it is what's most important. So this would be adding an entirely new ordinance as opposed to tweaking an existing ordinance. And we'd have to just run it past our city attorney, you know, to see if it, you know, to make sure everything flies. Anything else you can think of?
Yes, I was gonna say, in terms of process, I think there's a public noticing requirement anytime a committee is considering an ordinance change. If we're reviewing actual language, So I think that's 2 weeks and 1 week in advance of the meeting. So I would need to get that in the papers pretty quickly if we wanna consider language at the January 8th meeting. I think we would want to not wait all the way until February, because we'll need to make a recommendation to council. And, you know, we can make tweaks to the language at the next meeting through the approvals, and through the language of the recommendation, but I think it's totally doable. Just looking at the ordinance, looks like in chapter 395, we have snow and ice removal
Oh.
from sidewalks, that's where our language is,
Got
so
it.
I think we could, similar
That's
to
exactly where
Madison.
you're going. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
just add it right in there, but you also have to clear excess salt or melting agent.
Mhm.
And then I'll have to look into.
Which is the same way Madison structured it, just
Yeah.
adding it under that
Yeah.
paragraph.
Yeah,
Can I make a suggestion for the committee?
Yeah.
People have been talking about when they've seen something particularly egregious. I think it might be good to collect some photographs,
Mhm.
so that when we go to the council, we can see that it really is a problem.
Yeah.
With excess salt being used somewhat indiscriminately. And we're just trying to get at that problem. this way.
Yeah,
Might help, it might be a way to convince the council to support it.
I agree.
Kristen might have some, I might have one or two on my phone from last year when we hit the pavement.
Yeah,
Kristen might also have
Yeah,
a couple
it
on
won't
her.
be
Would you
hard.
mind
So I can
email
double
that?
check.
That would be
yeah,
great.
it won't be hard to collect.
So-
And not so much to identify the,
No, yeah,
Individual,
don't include
we're
the
not trying-
home.
No, no, no.
yeah, you don't
Yeah.
need to include the storefront, just the
No,
actual
yeah.
shot of it on the ground.
So yeah, I'm looking at Winona ordinance now, snow and ice removed, and it does seem like that's exactly the place to do this. You just tweak that existing ordinance with. Yeah,
yeah, so.
it looks exactly like that's what, yep.
Yeah, another thing would be that links to our fee schedule. So failure to remove snow and ice 24 hours after accumulation ceases. We would probably want to add excess salt to this as well.
You bet.
And the amount of fine doesn't even have to be as much as Madison.
No,
No.
I
It's kind of
Yeah,
agree.
it's symbolic more than anything.
Yeah, right now for snow removal, it's 25 for the first violation,
I'd be
50 for the
surprised
second.
if we apply that much either, though.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
would, I'll ask code enforcement how often that gets
Yeah.
enforced. I think just, the presence of the ordinance
Right.
is enough in most cases.
So Thor, what's on your plate? And do you think that January 8th is doable?
Yeah, I think this is gonna be just a couple sentences
Okay,
here, and
okay.
yep, I'll double check with Doug, I think this would fall under planning and zoning, it might need public works review because it's sidewalks, so I'll check that too, but I think it's okay for it to start in sustainability, we'll recommend it to other councils or committees and to council and get all the public noticing required.
Mhm.
This should be totally fine to get that done next week. Yeah,
That would be fantastic.
Yeah.
It would just be the perfect, I feel like we're kind of like scrambling here, but sometimes a tight deadline helps get stuff done.
yeah.
For me, it does anyway, because I'm reminded that the ordinance we worked on about natural lawns has just sat with, in the feedback process. My apologies for that. I need to get back to that. We asked, I asked some, of our neighbors who they did the Bee and Butterfly Brigade tour. Asked them to review it, and I'm still spinning on that, so yeah, it'll light a fire under me as well when it comes to ordinances, so thank you, Thor, that would be wonderful. All right, excellent. Well, in that case, then, let's move on to the next item, which is number 6. Letter B. Discussion and possible action regarding changing the Sustainability Committee's standing meeting time. So Thor also put into the packet a grid of all the committee meetings that are already happening in the city. And ours fall on the second Thursday of each month, or what were your thoughts on changing that?
Yeah, so I checked with the administrator. If we want to change our meeting time, that should be totally okay. For some committees, the meeting date and time is spelled out in the city ordinance.
Mhm.
That's not the case for ours, so all it would take would be kind of a decision from the committee to do that.
Mhm.
There's no administrative approval process or nothing by council that needs. So really the consideration would be, I don't think we want to overlap with any other committees, just
yeah.
as a courtesy.
Yeah,
So
just looking at Wednesday, can you imagine if one alder was assigned to all three of those? It's like, it's bad enough that on Thursdays I've got community media and then I rush to sustainability, that's doable,
mhm.
but all three, my goodness. So were there any preferences among folks in the room? Maybe, is Thursday a bad day of the week, or is it just moving it to the first or third Thursday of the month? Is that what you're sort of wondering
Yeah,
about?
I guess I wanted to add context for the folks who
Sure.
weren't here last month. This just came up. Rick brought this up at the end of the meeting as something that we should consider, just because we've been struggling with attendance lately, and it seems like this time is just a little difficult. And for Teresa, she has
Yeah,
another meeting immediately beforehand, right? So
Would-
it's just,
moving it earlier be preferred?
Yeah, I think that was the
And that
sense
was
of the
the other-
committee.
yeah, just like it's a very late meeting.
It is, yeah.
Which can be difficult for folks, so that was the main consideration, making it earlier, but.
Yeah.
The second Thursday doesn't work to make it earlier because Teresa's got community media.
But the first or third would work, the fourth, we could keep it on Thursdays, we can move it to Wednesday, it really doesn't matter to me. But not Wednesday because of Ken. Sorry. Forgot about that.
Well, it'd be helpful if it was an hour earlier,
Yep.
just so I can help put the kids to bed at night.
Yeah.
100% agree. So in
Doesn't
order
matter
to,
which Thursday of the month for me, so.
should we just do the first Thursday of the month at 5:30? Is there a motion?
I'll move.
I'll second.
First Thursday of the month at 5:30, is there, we've got a motion and a second, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes, the sustainability committee will from here on out, no, yeah?
I was
So-
gonna,
So our
I was
next
gonna
meeting
maybe
would be
decide on
January.
when, yeah,
Ah,
it wouldn't work for the January, so if you wanna have this start in February, perhaps.
sure, now, looking at January.
'Cause that would be New Year's Day.
That would. Ah. So in January, we will continue to meet at our regular scheduled time, which would be which would be January 11th. Okay, the second Thursday, and then in February, we will then meet on February 1st.
So not January 4th?
Hold on,
Am I getting the dates mixed up?
I was
here?
like,
Yeah.
yeah, the first is a Monday.
Yeah.
First Monday,
Oh.
yeah,
okay, Thor.
January 4th, I think, is what you meant. Wrongly.
yeah, I had January 8th in my mind, because that's a plan commission meeting date, so,
So in that case, we could meet on January 4th.
yeah.
I just the
But-
timing for getting.
The
permission,
timing of,
That's my concern is
The
the
three.
That's
meetings
what
that
it's
you
on the
need.
ordinance.
notices or the ordinance
Yeah.
might be difficult, especially with the holidays.
So just keep the January
so
time.
let's keep
and-
January then, but, so that means we're at 6:30. Yeah,
Yeah, so we'll start the new schedule in February.
so you think that it's just difficult to turn that around, okay, that's,
Yeah, because the,
First Thursday would
to
be.
post in the
February 4th.
papers, it requires about. We need to do 2 weeks before the meeting date and. It
Yep.
takes about a week in advance to even get it to the papers, given their printing schedules.
Yep.
So that'd be like getting things to them tonight.
okay.
Hmm.
So January 11th at 6:30, February 1st at 5:30.
There you go.
Wonderful.
And I'll send you an email for it, but I can't be at the January meeting then,
Okay,
unfortunately.
Oh,
Yeah, I know.
okay.
I can review stuff in advance though and send notes on.
yep,
where it
that's
is.
always welcome.
Thank you. The next thing, that was pretty easy, that's great. Do we have any? Oh, if I might, what, it's 7, we've got 4 minutes left. I just wanna.
Share your calendar. Just wanted to
Oh,
know
yeah,
that.
thank you. Stop by sharing.
That's too funny. I just wanted to circle back on some things that I'm remembering to say about the Don't Be Salty campaign. We've got, we've established a nice contact at MESBA who will, was very happy to help work into their newsletter, any of our initiatives. So we'll be working with them. My Monona News looks like, Kristen submitted something today that can go in this month's newsletter. Also, or you said you were gonna print more flyers. Did you mean bookmarks?
No, flyers
Ah,
that were handed out last
Oh,
year.
those are fantastic. Those are fantastic.
You've seen that, so.
I did it, yeah.
She
She designed it.
It's beautiful.
I've seen
I
that.
love that. Is that flyer in the meeting packet? That's
No,
beautiful.
not.
It's really beautiful. Okay. Great. Let's see. I also wanted to bring up something about, hmm, hmm, hmm. I'm sorry, my apologies. I wanted to share something that we spoke about when Kelly and Rick and I were meeting, the sustainability director in Middleton, but perhaps maybe it'll just come back to me. Sorry, I lost it. All right. Old age. Let's go. Does number 7, does anyone have anything to share about diversity, equity, inclusion discussion items? Anything that you've been involved in?
I have a question.
Yeah,
I think I read that something came out of the DIB committee about Renew Monona and how that might be reformed to do something
Yeah.
in addition to what it's doing now.
yeah. So last couple weeks ago, the DEIB report implementation team held a listening session at the library. And this is a body that is essentially looking at that report and finding ways to put the suggestions into action. And there were 3 work groups. One of them was a group that focused on affordable housing. And as part of the research and possible recommendations to the city, the idea to either change the the Monona program or create a brand new program and leave it as it is came about. And the reason is because Renew Monona is a low interest loan program that isn't really meeting its intended result. It really is, it's a loan program few know about, and those who have applied for it might not be the hoped for audience. So we would either change the requirements of the loan application process, or we would just create a new loan program.
In addition or instead? One of the two.
Correct,
Okay.
correct, yeah. Now, that said, a member of the DEIB committee shared with everyone that she and her partner applied for a loan and would not have been able to do what they were able to do without it. And they're just in the minority, they're not in a minority race or ever anything, but she did consider herself in some ways. I mean, she's, you know, she doesn't check all the boxes of, heterosexual, white, she does not check all of those boxes. So in some ways she wanted to expand, the definition of diversity beyond just race, which was an interesting conversation too.
Okay,
So, yeah. All right.
no, it's because there is some loans that go towards solar projects.
Yeah,
And probably energy updates. It might be a program we wanna look at. If we do wanna follow along what Middleton's doing with
yeah,
upgrading multi-housing or. What do you call it, that middle
the missing
neighborhood,
middle.
the missing middle,
Mhm. Mhm.
which I think Monona has a lot of.
Yeah, we do.
So if that program. I understand it's not oversubscribed, you know, they have
It's
a
not.
lot, right, it's kind of,
There's always money left at the end of each year, right? Yeah.
That's kind of a hidden,
Yeah.
invisible
For
program.
what it's worth, I can provide a little insight there and total disclosure. I applied for and received a Renew
Okay.
Monona loan.
That's right.
You guys probably recall we had a fire at our house, so we've
Yeah.
been doing some renovations and, you know, we had fire demolition to do, but we also discovered we had a lot of old electrical wiring from 100 years ago that didn't meet code and asbestos siding that had to be remediated and torn off. I had no idea the loan program even existed until Alder Patrick DePula told me about it. Otherwise, I would have had no idea that loan program was the thing. And I've since told two different neighbors about it that were completing home renovation projects, and they were absolutely stunned to hear that it existed either. They'd never heard about it.
Right,
So I
right.
think, you know, there needs to be, you know, even more so than a revampment of the program, just an awareness campaign to let people know that it's there because unless they've been poking around on the website or they know somebody else that's gotten one, I don't know that it has that much publicity.
Right.
I think that
the other
probably,
thing, you know, beyond the diversity and equity conversation, I think, you know, if you drive around our community, there are a lot of older homes in this neighborhood that are like mine that have 100-year-old wiring that's probably an electrical hazard and
Mhm.
homes that have asbestos siding on them that probably should be remediated.
Yeah,
And to the degree that, you know, that funding can be directed towards addressing some of that older housing stock and bringing it up to current code, I think that's a really good application of that funding, regardless of who the homeowner is. And let's face it, a lot of the older, more dilapidated homes are going to the folks that are on the lower end of the socioeconomic scale that are, you know, just scraping the bottom of the barrel trying to move into our community and can't necessarily afford a home with all the nicer amenities, right?
but I think our focus would be on energy and weatherization. Not necessarily asbestos remediation, maybe it
Yeah.
will.
it should though. I mean, that's
There's probably a lot of that
sustainability.
goes right hand in hand with
The
those
land, it
homes that
does,
have the
yeah,
100-year-old wiring and the asbestos siding of
Right.
the 100-year-old insulation and
Yeah.
right. It
Okay,
goes hand in hand, yeah.
yeah, I got a Renew Monona loan for my
Solar,
solar panel.
yeah,
I've been looking at one for a long time for a new bay window.
Yeah.
It is the leakiest window that exists. So certainly not an energy efficient home that I am in, so.
Yeah, do you live in Monona? You live in Monona?
Yeah.
Yeah,
so so maybe it's just, I mean, so is there something that this committee would, we're hoping to do? or
I think
just-
we should look at the program and see what it allows for and maybe what we might wanna see it do in addition.
Can we put that on next month's agenda?
I think it'd be great.
Maybe put it in the packet, have people take a look at that program and see
Yeah.
where we could help it along, even if it's just in promotion or advertising, maybe very targeted advertising to those who might most benefit from it, or maybe not, I don't know.
Is there a
And we
city,
send out those emails with like sustainability things that homeowners can do. It would be
Right,
an easy thing for us to add. And if you're looking for money to improve your home's energy efficiency, check out the Renew Monona loan program. you know.
yep, yep,
Yeah,
absolutely.
well, is it Doug who administers that program?
It is, yep, yep,
He-
the
he-
Community Development Authority oversees it and Doug administers it.
So maybe he could come to a meeting and talk about it, or maybe you could talk in his
I,
stead.
yeah, I'd be happy to present on it,
Okay,
Wonderful.
I mean,
yeah. and
it is CDA's program, but maybe we could have some input into some new thinking about it.
I think so, yeah, a recommendation to them,
Yeah,
especially right now as they're considering other changes.
yeah, all right.
Actually, Thor, what would be really helpful is if they have any data on past awards that were made and you know, how many people received funding, how much was awarded, you know, over time. Because we're just kind of going on anecdotal evidence right now that we think the program isn't well known, but you know, it'd be nice to see actual quantitative numbers to know.
Yeah, I can include that. I would imagine we track all that.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure you do.
Good call.
Yeah, even knowing how many of the homes have sold since the improvements. I mean, I think our goal is to improve the home for folks so that they can stay in the community and, you know, have a quality home to live in. So it'd be good to know if it's, you know, helping to drive some of that.
I think there's a requirement that you agree to stay in your home for a minimum amount of time. That you're not planning to move.
You have to repay it on, I was just reading through it. It says you have to repay it upon sale,
Yeah,
100%, but you know, still getting a 2% loan. I mean, it'd be interesting to see what the
yeah,
retention data is around that.
yeah, if that's available.
Yeah, I'll look into that.
Any other thoughts on the EAB initiatives, something that you might be taking part in? Something that comes to mind for me is, and I'm sure Alder Bernstein has his thoughts on this as well, is that the month of December is packed full of holidays that are way beyond, you know, just Christmas. And in fact, a couple weeks ago, Rick, during a city council meeting, handed me some little coins
Chocolate coins,
from your
guilt
faith tradition.
from Hanukkah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think that's wonderful.
yeah,
And there's just so many holidays, well, a couple of big Jewish holidays in the month of December.
Hanukkah's pretty
Hanukkah's it? I thought there was Sukkot or
much.
something.
Sukkot,
Yeah.
that's after the High Holy Days.
Oh, okay,
in
all
spring.
right, I'm needing to brush up on
And
that.
not always in December, right?
Oh, it moves
Based on a
around.
different-
Yeah, it's
yeah,
a different
totally different
calendar.
calendar.
Yeah,
Okay,
you never know when.
all right,
It can be November.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
It
Excellent.
always catches me by surprise.
Yeah. I'll throw out as well is that if you're a listener of WVMO, or if you have downloaded the Monona Go app on your phone, check out the show called Conectados. It's a bilingual program. If you've ever studied Spanish before, it's like a brush up on all your language. It's absolutely fantastic. The host speaks in English and Spanish,
Mm.
interviews folks, talks about a lot of really wonderful Latin culture, music, and news in the community. It's wonderful, wonderful addition to our city.
I do have one thing
Yeah.
on that. So I'm part of the DEIJ Community of Practice for Wisconsin Conservation, which is a kind of an ad hoc group of like 200 Wisconsin conservation organizations. And we do every other month, we have a meeting. So one, like if anyone on the sustainability committee wanted to join, I'd be happy to share that information. But also we had a meeting today, and Accessibility of Wisconsin was our presenter. I don't know how much the city of Monona has participated with accessibility, but they support getting folks that are other abled out into the outdoors for different outings and things like that. So I just wanted to raise awareness of their programs. If there's anything that either the sustainability committee puts on or the city of Monona puts on, that, you know, is kind of an outdoor outing, it might be worthwhile to check base with Accessibility Wisconsin to see if we can make it able-bodied for everyone.
DEIJ?
Yeah.
What's that?
Diversity, equity, inclusion, and justice.
Justice,
Mhm.
okay.
So I think what you're saying, Ashley, is that you could perhaps connect us to someone at this organization, or you might be the contact person
Sure.
who would help sort of advise the creators, like the 4th of July Festival, for example. This organization could help sort of like check a few things about the event to make
Yeah,
sure they were
so
accessible to everyone.
They do, you know, help with assessments, but then they also provide specifically folks in wheelchairs, they provide like all-terrain wheelchairs. So if there's anything, you know, I don't think we necessarily have anything that would require that in Monona per se, but you know, sometimes there are outings,
Yeah.
so they support those as well.
I will say on that, there are investments that the county parks department has made, that could be beneficial for Monona Parks to look at, for people accessing beaches, so people that use wheelchairs, but other mobility aids can't actually get can't maneuver through sand, obviously, and so.
Mhm.
We have created like beach mats and other things that allow people to get to the water
Hmm.
closer, and then also have built accessible fishing piers that are lower and wider for people that use wheelchairs to go out to the edge of the pier and fish as well for themselves, so. And the number, I mean, our parks has done a lot on accessibility for people with disabilities, so there
Yeah.
could be some things, I mean, they're not insignificant investments, but maybe some things that could be in the future beneficial for Monona
Yeah.
Parks to look at. 'Cause
Yeah.
we do have, beachfront parks.
We
so.
do, we do. I know of having sat through a few budget cycles, and you may agree, that I know that Jake and his team have a very long list of all the ADA changes that they are slowly checking off that
Mhm.
list.
Yeah, they did a system-wide survey. to
Yeah,
See what the needs were for all the
Right.
parks in the city.
yeah,
So at least they're aware of them, and I think you're right, they're gonna try to get through them.
I know.
At a time.
they've done a lot of work at Ahuska, and then I know that this summer there'll be some addition of some use sidewalky type so I don't know how to describe it, not so much like a concrete sidewalk, but maybe like a pavement of some sort that would be installed in Fireman's Park that would allow people to cross the park, like a
Oh.
walking path,
Mhm.
like of some sort.
Oh, yeah, there's
Yeah.
a new path that
Yeah.
we cut across. the
Yeah,
park,
so that's really nice. The final thing I'll say about DEIB, and then I know we'll get out of here, is that on next Monday, the 18th, the council will be voting on whether to continue negotiations with Madison Metro to essentially restore bus service to the city. A huge DEIB initiative, big sustainability initiative. I emailed everyone on the committee. I think a story that perhaps is not being told is that somewhere in the mid-50s, all the way up to like the late 80s, Madison Metro used to come into Monona. It came down Monona Drive to the south, turned in at Dean, went all the way down Winnequa Road, all the way around Fireman's Park and Winnequa Park. Turned again on Winnequa, left up the hill, left on Schluter, past the library, or right on Nichols and out to Monona Drive. It looped the entire area here, for like, again, the 50s to the 80s. And there was a point I'm told, I keep hearing stories and talking to people who used to ride the bus. I think it was in 1987, the mayor at the time decided to go it alone, start their own business company, start their own bus company here in Monona. So long story short, there's been many years without bus service, and I know that the opinions range on all of this, but I think the story that's not being told is that this is really to restore bus service. And it is also a very strong sustainability initiative. So, great. I think we're at the end of the agenda. So I will take a motion to adjourn.
I'll move adjourn.
Is there a second?
Second.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much, everyone. Lots of stuff that we handled tonight. Thank you.
Have a good evening and happy holidays, everyone.
Thank you, Ken.
Oh,
You too.
bye.